Alright, now the IEM market is still very excited about the whole planar IEMs and whatnot. And Kinera has their own set. This is their Pandamons. It's a $60 set of IEMs that use planar magnetic drivers, and it's not in the box because, well, it's in my hand, and we're going to be talking about it today, so, well, let's talk about it. Alright, now, if you made it this far into the review without looking at the title, this is going to be more of a gaming-focused review. We'll look at the sound for gaming, not for music, because even if it's good for music, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be good for games, so that's the perspective here. That being said, here's the box of the Pandamons, and you can tell the design is kind of strange, with this strange angry panda theme, yet also cyber panda theme. But anyway, in the box, you're going to get the IEMs themselves, a metal bookmark badge thing that is the panda, similar to the Gumios. You also get a pretty nice bag that snaps open, revealing our cable, some ear tips, as well as an IEM cleaning brush. And, well, aside from that, you also just get some paperwork. Starting with the cable, it's pretty nice with a very nice, fat and thick twist braid, with a metal 3.5mm jack at the end with some protection, a metal barrel splitter with a metal chin slider, and of course 2 pin connectors on ear hooks. Now, as for the IEMs themselves, like I mentioned before, the design is rather questionable. It's definitely not for my taste, not sure who it's out for, but, well, here it is, got some mecha pandas. On the metal grilled faceplate, on a rather simple design circular body where the back part is mostly made of plastic with 2 pin connectors on the side, and a single piece design nozzle that's out of plastic with metal grills in them. Visually speaking, while they are small and therefore don't stick out too much from the ear, so they kind of look pretty okay in the ears, the design themselves is definitely conflicting and is not to my taste, might be to someone else's taste. But that aside, the comfort of them is pretty good. They are a little bit finicky, but once in the ears, they are very, very comfortable and light and can be worn for very long periods of time. Though for me personally, I don't know if I'd wear them in public. Now, the sound of the Pandamons is interesting. I was expecting a V-shaped sound signature considering the design being the way it is, but that's not what I got. I instead kind of got the opposite. It's a smooth sound rather than a very detailed sound, which is gonna affect its gaming performance, but let's get more into the sound then because of that. Now, at the low end, there's not a whole lot of bass. These are not bass head IEMs by any means. At the low, like sub-bass regions, not a whole lot of rumble, not a lot of sub-bass here. Doesn't have the greatest reach in the world, and doesn't have the greatest, like, feel from there, like I said, with the rumble not being very strong at all. I mean, if you move to, like, the upper, like, bass and the higher bass, we're gonna have, more punch, but it is a soft punch. It's not a very strong bass, which technically is more desired, I guess, if you're gonna be playing for competitive shooters, and what is also desired in competitive shooters is a more forward, like, mid-region, which these things do have, and that's good. It gives a pretty good amount of presence to the mids. The detailing is just okay. It's not the greatest in the world. It doesn't get very granular. It doesn't get too analytical, so it's kind of more smooth, I'd say. Though, not too much so that we lose a crazy amount of detail. There's still an okay amount of detail in the mids, especially in the mid to upper mids, but then if we go into the highs, at some point the highs do roll off, so in combination with the highs and, you know, the mids, that's usually what we want from competitive shooters. The highs, unfortunately, are gonna roll off, so you lose detail, you lose some clarity. They don't get too bright, but on the bright side, they don't get too harsh or sibilant either. It's just that what happens is this whole entire sound seems to be leaning towards being more smooth and musical, I suppose, rather than being articulate and analytical, which is what I would prefer if I'm going to be using a set for, like, competitive shooters. Now, moving along in the soundstage and imaging, the soundstage is just average. I thought they would be bigger, considering that there's, like, this grill design that's almost open backish kind of looking, but it was just average in size. It wasn't, like, particularly big, and it was definitely more ovular shaped. It was more wide than it was deep, like, very wide compared to deep, and the height was not that great, which isn't very good. Now, how it uses a stage with sound separation, it's not the greatest. It's okay, but you still do have to hunt a little bit. So then if we take that and then also move into imaging, the imaging was just about average. These are okay in accuracy, but they're not pinpoint, so they're just sight. Now this will then affect its performance in games, and considering everything, one would probably think they'll maybe they'll be pretty good at, like, competitive shooters, in which case they kind of are. Like, the forward mids did help you find and track people pretty well, but I think there could have been just a little bit more details, especially if we had more, like, brightness in the upper regions, and the stage, I think, could be just a little rounder because of the width being much wider and bigger than, like, the depth. The tracking wasn't the greatest experience from a 360-degree angle, especially with the lack of height. There was definitely a lot more effort being put if you're going to be hunting for people and trying to pinpoint people, but they're generally accurate. I just don't think they're accurate enough and not tuned to be detailed and bright enough for them to be, like, really, really good for a competitive shooter where you're really really trying to win and just track people. So for competitive shooters, they were less than stellar. Now on the other end of the spectrum is more non-competitive games. Maybe it'll be pretty good there. And I think they did an okay job. Like, they're a comfortable listen. They're very easy to listen to for long periods of time due to the smoothness of the sound, the lightness of the IEMs, and it's been an enjoyable listen when playing those sort of games. Though for my personal preference, I would have wanted more warmth in the sound, to give more oomph to the sound, to give more weight and feeling to the sound, to really bring me in for that immersion. Like, it's not like you can't get immersed with these guys, you can. I just think they would be far more immersive if they had more bass, just more oomph in that lower bass region to really pull you in. But when it comes to like non-competitive games, I suppose sound starts getting a little bit more subjective in terms of what you like to hear and listen to. So there is that fact. So, you know, remember, sound is subjective, and that'll affect your experience. Though when it comes to more competitive shooters, I think it's a little bit more objective, in which case I think a lot of you guys might agree with me in terms of its performance in those sort of games. Now, while this might not be like the cup of tea for me for gaming, maybe it'll be the cup of tea for you. So if you like this kind of sound signature, if this is your cup of tea and you do want to try them out, I'll have a link in the description for you to purchase from. For me personally, I like warmer sounds. But yeah, that's basically all I have for these guys. So, you know, yeah, like I said, check them out in the description if this is what you like. For me, not so much. That's just me, you know? See you guys next time.